Hey everybody, I want to film a really quick video today and talk about how to control the volume via a slider in the scene here. So if you guys watched my videos from the last few days here, we talked about volume, how to play different clips, how to control the sound here. Now I want to have some way for the player to control the sound here, right? Because the player is not going to go in here, they're not going to edit these scripts. They're going to want to have something in scene that they can adjust. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's take a look at our project so far. And if any of these parts confuse you, I recommend going back and watching the videos from the previous days here, okay? So first up, we have one script here. We have one MP3. And if I bring the script into the scene here, we can see it's pretty simple. On the start method, we're getting a reference to the audio source. And then on the update, if we hit space, we're going to play the sound. If it's already playing, we'll stop it. And then Q is going to adjust the volume from here. And this was in the video from the other day. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and comment that out because we're not going to use that right now. In the inspector in the scene here, I have a main camera. One of the things that's important to keep in mind with the main camera is that it has a audio listener on it. Right, so the way I think about this is the camera is like our eyes and the audio listener would be like our ears. If we remove this, we're not going to hear anything. We have directional light, of course, because it's a 3D world. We have a game manager that has an audio source on here, and then we have an audio manager script from here. Now, if you want this MP3, all I did is Google sample MP3. This is 3 seconds long. Really nothing special about it, but you can just Google any MP3 that you really want. And then finally, the mention here on the audio source, we do not have play on wake, and we do not have loop on. Now, if you want to have some type of background track that keeps playing over and over again, I would recommend turning on loop. But right now, this is how we're going to do it here. Of course, you can edit based on what you need to have in your game here, okay? So what I'm going to do first off here is I'm going to go ahead and right click on the inspector. I'm going to go to UI and we're going to create a slider right there. Now, of course, we're more focused on the audio element of this. I'm going to turn on 2D here and let's find our slider. Of course, we can adjust a bunch of different things with the color, the size. I'm probably just going to leave this maybe just even a bit bigger. But basically as simple as we can get it from here. And let's adjust the handle. Just so it's not like too wonky here. Right, the width, let's make this, I don't know, 50, 50, 25, cool. And 0, is that what we want? No. What we want is we want to adjust the handle position so it's right about there. There we go, cool. So the width is 75. The width can actually looks a little oblong. Let's make that a little wider. Let's make this, I don't know, 100. Make that 0. Save, and the slider itself, let's make that 100 too. There we go. And that's just so it looks a little better here, okay? So if I go to my game here, we can see that the slider is now in game. I can adjust it if I want, but it really doesn't do anything right now. And there we go. All right, so I can move it up and down, but of course it doesn't do anything. What I'm also going to do very quickly here, this really isn't too important, but something that I think that I'm going to adjust here. I'm going to say scale with screen size, and when the reference resolution is going to be 1920 by 1080. And let's say match let's go expand here. Cool. This way it makes a little more sense here between our scene view and our actual game view, okay? Now what we want to do on the slider itself here is we want to change a few things here. Actually, this looks pretty good from here. We want to say the minimum value is going to be 0 and the maximum value is going to be 1 here. So everything in between is a float between 0 and 1. And that's what we want for the audio here too, right? We can see it right there. And we can see it on the audio manager from here too, right? If we want to adjust the volume, it's between 0 and 1. So that's pretty good from there. If you want to have the slider reflect some type of different value, you might have to do some math via the script. But right now, let's just keep it simple here. Let's go between 0 and 1. Now what I'm going to do on the script here is I'm going to go ahead and say using Unity Engine UI, and let's make a new method from here. I'm going to say this needs to be public void, and we're going to say update volume slider. I'm going to make this a lowercase u, and let's go ahead and debug.log, and let's just say adjusted for right now. So what's going to happen on this method from here, we're going to call this method every single time the slider changes its value. So back to the game here. And then on the slider, we're going to say on value change, we're going to hit plus. We're going to drag in our game manager here, and we're going to find the audio manager script and then update the volume slider from here. Back to here. And we'll see that on the console here, every time I adjust this, we're going to say adjust it, right? We're calling this method every single time we change the value on the slider. And that's what we want here. We could put it in update if we really wanted to, so that every time the audio plays, it checks in with the value of the slider. That's a little bit out of order, my opinion. It might still work here, but it makes more sense to only call this method when we adjust the volume. All right. So let's go back. Let's stop this for a second here. What we're going to do here at the top is we're going to say, let's go serialized field, slider, call it volume slider. So we're going to hook up a reference to the volume slider in our script here, back to our inspector. And of course, there's a few different ways to go about this here. If I really want to make this a little more organized, I would probably attach the, I might just go ahead and find the component in the script here, but right now this works for okay. This works pretty good. So to our game manager, and we're looking for a volume slider, and we're going to drag in, let's rename this while we're here, to be volume slider. Go ahead and drag that in there. And then what we're going to do here is instead of saying debug.log.adjusted, we're going to do slider, say slider dot value. Oops, lowercase. I'm sorry, volume slider dot value. And then back to here. We're going to let that think about it for a second. And let's hit play. And now if we drag this here, now we have the change in the value from here. We're getting printed a bunch of times here, but that's okay for right now, right? Because every time we adjust it ever so slightly, it's calling that method from that. It's calling that function from there, right? So pretty good, but now we have to adjust the volume from here. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say audio source dot volume equals the volume slider dot value. Oops, value. Cool. And then back to our game from here. And that, so since we changed this method from here, we're not going to see anything printed to the console here, but we should see our audio source be adjusted over here in the inspector, right? So if I drag this up here, now we'll see it gets set to 0.6. If I drag it down, we'll see it set to 0.16, right? Now remember that the key code to play the music here is space. So if I hit space right now, it's a little bit quieter than if I bring it up to there, right? Hopefully that's coming through. So now you could have something in scene here to have like, you know, background music playing, but if the user wants to turn up the volume or turn down the volume, they could drag that up or down if they wanted to from there, right? Now we're going to do one more thing here, and this is just going to kind of be like a bonus thing here. I found that if you're, even for me, the first few years working with Unity here, this didn't make a whole lot of sense to me here, but as my projects became more complex and I had more things going on here, I really don't like having two different ways to kind of, two different sources to kind of set up buttons and things in game here. So I didn't like having something in the inspector and having scripts too. Like I said, when things get more complex and things get more convoluted, it starts to get a little more messy and things get, you know, lost. You don't know what's happening here. So instead of having it selected through the inspector and calling this function from here, we're going to set up basically a listener event from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the public from here. We're going to leave it just like that there, and we're going to say volume slider, if I can type properly, volume slider dot on value changed dot add listener, and this is going to be a delegate, and we're going to say update volume slider, and then another parenthesis from there, and then we can save this here. So the complete line is volume slider dot on value change dot add listener parenthesis. You can zoom in a little bit there. Parenthesis update volume slider in curly braces from there with a semicolon, and then another parenthesis from there. And like I said, the syntax doesn't make a whole lot of sense here, but since it's set like this here, we don't need to drag it into the inspector anymore. Especially if you have a really complex UI and you have a lot of things going on, this makes a lot more sense in my opinion. But anyways, let's make sure this works here. Back to the game, back to here, and what we'll even do on the volume slider here, just to prove this is working, we're going to remove this from there. Save. Let's go ahead and hit play. And we'll see when this script runs in the beginning here, now it's assigned, right? So we'll see if I go to the game manager with my audio from there, and I drag this up or down, it's still selecting that there. It's still calling this function from here, right? And if I hit space, right, we hear that music, or the sound effect I should say, still working. So if you guys enjoyed, be sure to give me a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. And I will, if you guys have any suggestions for other videos, be sure to drop in the comments down below. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day.